My name is Emily Carter. I'm 41 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've believed one thing above all else. Emotion has its place, but clarity wins wars. I built my aircraft parts manufacturing company from nothing but a rented warehouse and an idea 15 years ago. It isn't glamorous, no magazine covers, no flashy tech buzzwords, but it's profitable, stable, respected in the industry, and every single bolt, every contract, every expansion came from discipline, not drama. That philosophy carried into my personal life too, or at least I thought it did. I met Christopher Richards 6 years ago at a logistics conference in Chicago. He was 32 then. Sharp suit, sharper mind. A supply chain analyst for a competing firm. We argued about freight efficiency models for almost 40 minutes before realizing we agreed on most of it. He made me laugh. That was rare. Within a year, he relocated to be with me. Within 2, I proposed. Yes, I proposed. I don't believe in outdated scripts. He cried when I slid the ring across the dinner table. We set a wedding date for August 15th. Elegant, not extravagant. Chris had been married briefly in his 20s. This time, he'd told me softly, it's about us, not a spectacle. I believed him. Our engagement lasted 18 months. We were both busy professionals. We wanted time to merge lives properly. Finances, schedules, routines. I renovated my home office so we could both work remotely. We discussed children. He wasn't sure at first, worried about balancing careers. We talked it through like adults. Retirement planning, investment portfolios, healthcare coverage. We built our future like a blueprint. Then came March 17th. I was supposed to be in Denver overnight handling a supplier issue, but the problem resolved faster than expected. I caught an earlier flight home and decided not to tell Chris. I wanted to surprise him. The surprise was mine. I entered the house quietly around 10 p.m. The living room lights were dim. 2 wine glasses sat on the coffee table. Soft music drifted from upstairs. I smiled at first. He sometimes played music when he cooked late dinners. I walked upstairs. The bedroom door was slightly open. I heard his voice, breathless, intimate, a tone I knew too well. Then a woman's voice responded. Low, familiar, Victoria James. His coworker. I didn't burst in. I didn't scream. I pushed the door open slowly. And there they were, in my bed, in the house I paid for, in the life we planned. They froze. The classic deer in headlights look, almost comical in another universe. Emily, Chris gasped, scrambling for the sheet. You were supposed to be in Denver. Clearly, I said. My voice was steady. That surprised even me. I looked at Victoria. Get out of my house. She moved first, gathering her clothes, avoiding my eyes. Chris reached toward me. It's not what it looks like. I actually laughed. 8 months later, I would realize that was the moment something inside me crystallized permanently. How long? I asked. Silence. How long, Chris? He hesitated. That was answer enough. 8 months. 8 months. While we toured wedding venues. While we merged savings accounts. While I expanded my home to support his remote work. 8 months of deliberate choices. Pack a bag, I said calmly. You're leaving tonight. Emily, please, we can fix this. No, I wasn't yelling. That frightened him more. You can come back tomorrow while I'm at work to collect the rest of your things. Leave your key on the counter. Victoria had already disappeared down the stairs. Chris stood there trembling. I was lonely, he whispered. You were engaged. He left with an overnight bag and red eyes. I locked the door behind him. Then I poured myself a whiskey and sat alone in the dark living room. I expected hysteria. Instead, I felt something colder. Clarity. The kind you get when a fracture finally breaks clean. Around 2 a.m., I went to bed, alone in sheets that suddenly felt foreign. And somehow, I slept. Better than I had in months. Because uncertainty was gone. The next day, he returned while I was at work. When I came home, half the closet was empty. His key sat neatly on the kitchen counter. I changed the locks anyway. The phone call came that evening. Tears, promises, therapy. It only happened a few times. 8 months isn't a mistake, I said evenly. It's a parallel relationship. He snapped then. Victoria understands me in ways you don't. She's passionate. She's spontaneous. Then go be with her. I hung up. That night, I began canceling vendors. By the end of the week, I'd recovered nearly all deposits except custom invitations already printed. The venue manager was sympathetic. Cheating fiancés are more common than you'd think, she told me gently. I sent screenshots of Chris's messages when necessary. Businesslike. Efficient. By Sunday evening, most of the practical damage was contained. I believed the emotional damage would follow the same trajectory. I was wrong. 3 days later, his friend Megan sat stiffly on my couch. Chris is devastated, she began. I imagine he is. He made a mistake. Throwing away 6 years over one slip-up seems extreme. 8 months, I corrected. She shifted uncomfortably. Emily, he's 38. Do you know what that means for a man? His window for starting a family, building stability. You've taken his best years. I stared at her. I didn't take anything. He cheated. He's speaking to an attorney, she added quietly. And that was when I understood this wasn't over. Not even close. If there's one thing I understand better than most people, it's risk assessment. You don't panic when turbulence hits. You tighten your seatbelt and check your instruments. So when Megan left my house with her thinly veiled warning, he's speaking to an attorney, I didn't spiral. I called mine. Jonathan Miller had been my friend since college. Methodical, precise, the kind of family law attorney who didn't dramatize, he calculated. He listened without interrupting while I laid out the timeline. 6 years together, 18-month engagement, 8-month affair, wedding canceled, financial disentanglement underway. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. It sounds like he may be considering a breach of promise suit. I blinked. That's medieval. They're rare, Jonathan admitted, but in our state they still exist. If someone claims financial damages from a broken engagement, relocation costs, career sacrifices, they can try. He cheated, I said flatly. I know, but lawsuits aren't about morality. They're about arguments. I felt the first flicker of something sharp beneath my calm. Start gathering everything, Jonathan continued. Evidence of the infidelity, documentation of mutual decisions, any records that contradict claims of career sacrifice. I hung up and opened my laptop. If Chris wanted to turn love into litigation, I would treat it like any other contract dispute. Systematically. 3 weeks later, a courier knocked on my office door. Thick envelope, court stamp. Christopher Richards was suing me for $440,000. The claim read like satire. Loss of economic opportunity, emotional devastation, reputational harm. And, I had to reread this twice, loss of prime reproductive years. He alleged that I had induced him to relocate, stagnate his career trajectory, and invest 6 critical years of his life in a relationship terminated without just cause. Without just cause. I stared at the phrase for a long time. Finding your fiancé in bed with another woman apparently did not qualify. Jonathan was less amused. This is aggressive, he muttered during our emergency meeting. His attorney is framing you as a controlling, career-dominant partner who sidelined him. Sidelined him? I almost laughed. He received a promotion after moving here. Good, we'll use that. I leaned back in the leather chair and let the anger surface. Not hot, not explosive, just steady. He wasn't devastated. He was cornered. And cornered people get creative. The next 2 months blurred into depositions, document requests, and quiet character assassinations. His legal team pushed a narrative that I pressured him to move, that I discouraged him from seeking leadership roles, that I promised him a lifestyle of leisure once my company expanded, that I abruptly ended the engagement over a single indiscretion. Single indiscretion. The audacity would have been impressive if it weren't so pathetic. But what unsettled me most wasn't the legal attack. It was how quickly he reshaped our history. In depositions, he spoke calmly. Measured. I felt emotionally neglected, he claimed. Emily prioritized work. I sought connection elsewhere. I listened to the transcript later and felt something colder than anger. Disappointment. Not because he cheated, but because he believed this version of events could replace reality. Jonathan and I prepared meticulously. We built timelines, financial comparisons, cloud backup logs. Then we found something he'd forgotten about. Our home network. Every device, phone, tablet, laptop, automatically synced to a shared cloud account. In my name. The account I paid for. Jonathan read the recovered messages in silence. Then he looked up at me slowly. Oh, Emily. What? You're going to win. The day of the initial hearing arrived on a gray Tuesday morning. Chris sat across the courtroom dressed conservatively. Navy suit, softened expression, the portrait of a wounded professional man. Victoria wasn't there. Interesting, his attorney began. She painted me as intimidating, hyper-focused, emotionally distant, a powerful businesswoman who allegedly viewed her fiancé as an accessory. I kept my hands folded in my lap. Jonathan stood when it was our turn. He walked through the timeline first. Mutual relocation decision, shared financial planning, promotion records, salary increase after move. Then he shifted tone. Your Honor, the plaintiff claims the engagement ended without just cause. We would like to submit evidence contradicting that statement. Screenshots appeared on the courtroom monitor. Text messages, hotel confirmations. A neighbor's affidavit confirming Victoria's car outside my house repeatedly during my business trips. Chris's composure faltered. Then came the final exhibit, the messages from the shared cloud. Jonathan read them calmly. I can't wait until Emily's company expands enough for me to quit working altogether. Pause. And once we're married, I'll have security no matter what happens. Longer pause. Then the one that shifted the air in the room. Victoria's passion, but Emily is my retirement plan. The courtroom went silent. I didn't look at Chris. I didn't need to. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp silver hair and sharper eyes, peered over her glasses. Mr. Richards, she said slowly, am I to understand that while engaged to the defendant, you were conducting an affair and discussing the engagement in explicitly financial terms? Chris swallowed. They're taken out of context. Which context, the judge asked dryly, improves the phrase retirement plan? His attorney shifted uncomfortably. The judge continued reviewing documents. Furthermore, employment records indicate the plaintiff received a promotion and salary increase after relocating. That contradicts claims of career stagnation. She closed the folder. This court does not recognize wasted reproductive years as compensable damages, nor does it convert voluntary romantic relationships into economic contracts. Then she delivered the blow. Case dismissed with prejudice, meaning he couldn't refile on the same grounds. And the plaintiff will cover the defendant's legal fees, nearly $30,000. Chris's face drained of color. He stood abruptly and left before the judge finished speaking. I remained seated. I felt no triumph, just a deep exhale. It was over, or so I believed. 2 weeks later, there was a knock at my door, and when I opened it, Christopher Richards looked nothing like the man who had once argued freight models with confidence. His tie was crooked. His eyes were red. Can I come in? He asked quietly. Against my better judgment. I stepped aside. Christopher stepped inside like a man entering a museum of a life he no longer belonged to. The house felt different now. Cleaner, quieter, mine. He stood near the doorway for a moment, as if unsure where he was allowed to exist. You can sit, I said evenly. He lowered himself onto the edge of the couch, not leaning back, not comfortable, just perched. Up close, I noticed the details. Unshaven jaw, wrinkled shirt, the polished confidence he used to wear like armor was gone. I lost my job, he said. I didn't react. Victoria was promoted to the position I was in line for. Of course she was. I folded my hands together and waited. My attorney is demanding payment, he continued. $30,000 is more than I have liquid. Megan wants me to find my own place. I can't even afford the deposit on an apartment right now. His voice cracked. Not dramatically, not theatrically, just thin. I didn't think it would fall apart like this. There it was. Not remorse. Shock that consequences were real. What did you expect would happen, Chris? I asked quietly. I thought you'd fight for me, he said. Or that the judge would see that I gave up 6 years for us. I thought something would balance out. Balance. As if life were an equation that automatically protected him. He finally looked up at me. Can you help me? Just until I get back on my feet. The room felt very still. 6 years together. 18 months engaged. 8 months of betrayal. 2 months of litigation. I studied him carefully. The man who once accused me of emotional coldness now looked small. I searched myself for anger. There wasn't any. Just clarity. No. The word landed softly between us. He blinked. No? Your choices led you here, not mine. I made a mistake. You made a series of decisions, I corrected gently, every day for 8 months. Then you made another decision to sue me. He stood abruptly. I was hurt. You ended everything without even trying to fix it. I tilted my head slightly. You were in bed with another woman. His jaw tightened. You're acting like you're perfect. No, I said. I'm acting like accountability exists. Silence stretched. You could at least loan me something, he tried again, voice lowering. After everything. After everything. That phrase almost made me laugh. After everything, I repeated. You attempted to monetize our relationship. You labeled yourself the victim of wasted years while calling me your retirement plan. You publicly accused me of career manipulation. I stood now too. If I help you, I validate that behavior. His expression shifted from pleading to something sharper. You think you're better than everyone. No, I replied calmly. I think actions matter. For a moment, I thought he might argue again. Instead, he shook his head slowly. You're going to regret being this harsh. Maybe, I said, but I won't regret respecting myself. That seemed to deflate him more than anger would have. He moved toward the door, pausing before opening it. You don't know what people are saying about you, he muttered. I didn't rise to it. Take care of yourself, Chris. He left without slamming the door. That was the last time I saw him. The next morning, I changed my phone number. I updated the security system. I instructed the front gate to flag his license plate. It wasn't fear. It was boundaries. Word travels in professional circles. Within a month, I learned the rest. Victoria had never intended to build a future with him. She enjoyed the affair. She enjoyed the drama. She enjoyed winning. But once the lawsuit collapsed and his promotion prospects evaporated, she distanced herself. Chris had gambled everything on an emotional fantasy and lost. He moved back to his hometown, took a job at a smaller transportation firm, was reportedly living with his older sister. I didn't gloat, but I also didn't feel sorry, because none of it surprised me. When you treat relationships like leverage, you eventually become the collateral. 3 months later, I sold the house. Too many ghosts in the hallways. I purchased a smaller property closer to my manufacturing facility. Minimalist, efficient, quiet. Work intensified in the best possible way. We secured a contract with a European aircraft manufacturer, one that would expand operations significantly. Growth feels different when it isn't shared, but it also feels cleaner. For a while, I dated casually. Nothing serious. Then I met Ethan Hayes, patent attorney, measured voice, direct eye contact, the rare kind of man who asked questions and actually listened to the answers. Our first conversation wasn't about feelings. It was about intellectual property disputes, which oddly enough felt romantic. By month 2, we were discussing asset protection openly. Prenups aren't unromantic, he said one evening over dinner. They're clarity. I smiled at that. Clarity. The word felt like coming home. We moved slowly, deliberately. No merging finances, no grand gestures. Just steady consistency. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was negotiating my own worth inside a relationship. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered if I had been too severe. If I could have offered Chris a small bridge instead of a closed door. Then I would remember the courtroom monitor lighting up with his words. Emily is my retirement plan. Not partner. Not equal. Plan. No, I hadn't been harsh. I had been accurate. 6 months after the lawsuit ended, Jonathan called me. You'll appreciate this, he said. Chris had attempted to refile the case in another jurisdiction. It was dismissed almost immediately. Some people don't learn. They double down. The most unexpected call came a few weeks later. His parents. They wanted to meet. I agreed cautiously. We had dinner at a quiet restaurant downtown. Old school people. Traditional. Direct. His father cleared his throat halfway through the meal. We're embarrassed, he said simply. The lawsuit was a disgrace. His mother nodded. We raised him better than that. I didn't know what to say, so I chose honesty. I loved him, I said, but I won't apologize for protecting myself. His father gave a small nod. Nor should you. We spoke of neutral topics after that. Weather, industry, travel. Not once did Chris's name resurface. When we parted, his mother squeezed my hand. You deserve better. That surprised me more than the verdict ever had. If there's one lesson in all of this, it's not about revenge. It's about definition. He saw relationships as investments with exit strategies. I saw them as partnerships built on mutual respect. We were never going to succeed, because we were never speaking the same language. Standing your ground doesn't require anger. It requires clarity. I lost an engagement, but I gained something infinitely more valuable. Self-respect. 6 months later, life did what it always does. It moved forward. My company secured the European contract we'd been negotiating for nearly a year. The expansion meant new hires, a second production line, and a satellite logistics facility. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same industry where my engagement had imploded was now accelerating my growth. Work had never been my escape. It was my foundation. And now it felt steadier than ever. Ethan and I had settled into something quiet and intentional. No theatrics, no emotional brinkmanship, just conversations that made sense. One evening, we were reviewing a draft cohabitation agreement at my kitchen table. Yes, I said, scanning the clauses. Asset protection on both sides. Clean boundaries. He smiled slightly. Romantic. Efficient, I corrected. He leaned back in his chair. You know what I admire most about you? What? You don't confuse compassion with obligation. The words lingered, because they were true. Occasionally, updates about Christopher filtered through mutual professional connections. He was working for a small regional transportation company now. Mid-level role. Nothing strategic, nothing leadership track. He had reportedly told people a very different version of our story. That I was controlling, that I sabotaged his career, that I used my wealth to crush him legally. I didn't correct the narrative. Truth doesn't require defense from every rumor. It stands on record. Then came the strangest development of all. Christopher attempted to contact Ethan. Not directly, but through LinkedIn. A polite message. I feel you should know what Emily is capable of. Ethan showed it to me without commentary. I read it once, then I handed the phone back. Block him, I said. Ethan did. No drama, no insecurity, just clarity again. That night, I found myself reflecting on something I hadn't allowed space for before. Grief. Not for Christopher as he was, but for who I thought he was. For 6 years, I believed I was building something mutual. But the courtroom messages stripped away illusion. He hadn't loved me the way I loved him. He loved the outcome, the security, the projected future. And when he realized he'd gambled incorrectly, he tried to invoice me for it. That realization no longer hurt. It educated. A year after the night I walked into that bedroom, Ethan and I hosted a small dinner at my new house. Colleagues, friends, Jonathan. At some point, Jonathan raised a glass casually. To strong contracts, he said. I smirked. And stronger character. The table laughed. But beneath it, there was something deeper. Not celebration. Resolution. Later that evening, after the guests left and the dishes were stacked neatly in the sink, Ethan stepped onto the back patio with me. You ever regret it? He asked quietly. Regret what? Not helping him, not softening the landing. I considered the question seriously. I remembered Christopher sitting on my couch, asking for a bridge after trying to burn the entire structure. I don't regret the decision, I said finally. I regret that the decision was necessary. Ethan nodded. That was the difference. Resentment would have been poison. Clarity was medicine. A few weeks later, Jonathan forwarded me a final update. Christopher had defaulted on a portion of his legal fee payment plan. Collections were involved now. I stared at the email for a long moment, not out of satisfaction, but out of recognition. Every choice echoes, sometimes immediately, sometimes slowly, but always eventually. There's a misconception that strength looks cold, that boundaries look cruel, that walking away without offering rescue is heartless. It isn't. It's self-respect. I didn't ruin Christopher's future. He miscalculated it. I didn't waste his years. He invested them poorly, and I didn't steal anything from him. He tried to convert love into leverage, and the market corrected him. If there's wisdom to extract from this, it's simple. Love cannot survive when one person is drafting contingency plans while the other is drafting vows. Partnership requires alignment, not strategy. Trust requires sincerity, not spreadsheets. And when someone reveals that they see you as a retirement plan instead of a partner, you don't negotiate. You close the account. I lost an engagement. I lost a house. I lost 6 years of assumed certainty. But I gained clarity. And clarity, unlike betrayal, compounds.